And welcome back. We're moving into our second segment for this morning. As a matter of fact, next month, which is about 2 days away, a day away, is actually going to be Fisherfolk Month. And it's something that we're looking forward to because most of us, come on, we love to fish in. But for business, we've got a few people who are actually doing it. Wildlife Conservation Society Fisherfolk Month nomination for Fishers of the Year. In with us, Danielle Dawson, who is, of course, the Vice Chairman of National Fishermen Producers Cooperative Society Limited, and Ralna Lewis, Assistant Country Director, Wildlife Conservation Society. Lady, gentlemen, it's so nice to have you. Good morning.
Good
and
morning.
Welcome.
Good morning.
All right.
First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to say good morning to the Belizean and especially the fisher folks. Huh? Good morning, everyone.
All right.
Thank you. And that's if they're not out at sea already, because they might be soon.
They're preparing now to go out. For the
Since they don't check the weather report.
Yeah.
I always hear from fisher folk that, you have to say the tides. We need to know the tides. But they have access to checking now. I want to start off, obviously, by saying one of the things that is very clear is the fact that we're seeing fisher folk and not fisherman. And please tell us, how did we get to this point?
So it's an inclusive term that we're using because fisheries involves obviously both men and women. Yeah. If you look at the entire value chain, we're talking about the pre-harvest activities that involves preparing, for going out to sea, and then the harvest activity actually catching your seafood, and then the post-harvest, which is the processing. So when we look at fishing now, we're looking at all those activities along the value chain, and when you look at that perspective, then you see obviously both men and women are involved in that sector, and both of them contribute to the income and the economic contribution that fisheries sector is having to Belize. So we have an inclusive term that we're using, and also when we look at our fishers, we have about 3%. It's very small, but 3% of our entire fishing population is made up of women, right? And it's predominant, especially in the southern regions of Belize, in Toledo and in Stan Creek district. You see a lot of fisher women also involved in the sector, actually going out and fishing. That's besides the fact those who are helping their husband, preparing for the trip, scaling the fish, finding the persons to buy as well.
Yeah, I love, and that's why I started there, so we can have an understanding when we talk of fisher folk. We're not just saying the person who physically catches the fish, although they do quite a bit of work. Exactly. Talk to us though about this industry and what it contributes to society, what it's like for the individual family itself who survive off of this industry.
Well, to begin with, the fishing industry is very important, especially for the people that lives on the coast of Belize from north to south of the country. It does provide a lot of income to the country as a foreign exchange, employment. We at National Fishermen, we offer our membership a scholarship, and things like that, to enhance the entire program and give them more courage to keep on working. And also, I like to elaborate on the beginning of this industry. I'm there for some years. I was there from the beginning, and 50 years ago, a group of fishermen farmed in San Pedro, a group in Belize, and one in Placencia, and they formed 4 cooperatives: Caribbean, National Fishermen, Northern, and Placencia. We took away the buying of the lobster from the foreigners, and we stood proud for 50 odd years. But now we are facing a problem with the private sector that is infringing in the livelihood of the fishermen. And we, on our part, we welcome challenges, but we don't want to become like the Caribbean, some part of the Caribbean and Central America, that fishermen have been deprived of their industry. Fishermen wants back their industry, so we're speaking right now. We need to get back that industry and continue the livelihood of these people.
Maybe what we need to explain is how the cooperative works for the fishermen? Because I think it's been around so long that people don't always understand the role that it plays. How does a cooperative help a fisher man or woman?
Well, to begin with, they purchase a product from them, they export it, and they give them a second payment. Which and we work hard to enhance those prices, get good market. Right now we're getting some very good markets, and the fishermen would be pleased with the payments that we are going to give them, because they are looking forward for an incentive every year. Us at National Fishermen, the committee is working hard to get better prices, and we are getting better prices because of the quality of our product. It's very fresh, and it's it's nearby. So our product is on a great demand. But on the other side, we have to work hard for that group of fishermen to be satisfied. You can't satisfy everyone, but we are trying our best.
So when you talk of the challenges with the private sector, what is it? So I go out, I catch fish, and usually if I'm independent, I have to find somebody to buy it, which may seem like an easy thing to do, but if I have a big catch, not so easy. So I can go, if I'm a member, to a cooperative, you purchase all my fish, but you may be purchasing at a lower price than what I may be able to get if I take my boat out to San Pedro and go to a restaurant.
Well, that's the problem. That's a major problem, because the buyers are offering $1 more, but national fishermen could compete also with that $1. But we are subsidizing with ice, fuel, and stuff like that, and we do try to reach with the competition. But at the end of the year, it affects the second payment. Because now fishermen are looking forward for a second payment. These private sector doesn't give a second payment.
It's a one-time
So
deal.
that's a one-time, and if there's no coop around, that price would eventually fall.
So it's so it's not illegal for them to take their product to a private sector. So it simply means that the competition is on, which competition is always healthy for business.
Right.
Now, what is the Fisherman Coop doing, or the National Fisherman Coop doing, so that this doesn't happen?
Well, they are trying to create better markets and better programs for the fishermen. And we on the other side, we also go and talk to the private sector. Hey, let us be lenient and try to do the business the correct way. I totally agree with you with the health of the competition. But on the same token, the competition is being allowed to purchase product not on a proper ground, meaning that he doesn't have a receiving center, or they just receive product on the side of the river. It's not healthy. And we are complying with all the requirements of sanitary programs and stuff like that. So in order to meet the foreign market.
Standards,
And there's also a social aspect to the cooperatives as well, right? So it provides the first payment and the second payment to the fishers, but you're a member of these cooperatives. And being a member, you're entitled to certain benefits that they provide. So the cooperatives also look at, like he said, providing scholarships to your children, and it's also, like we said, it's a national thing whereby you basically are involved in this entire industry, and you're the ones that are engaging with the export of the product and so on. So it's that social dimension of it as well, whereby your cooperatives are very beneficial to Belize's economy and our society. So it provides that benefit as well.
And we're talking of the economic side of it, and it's very important because that's the primary reason people get involved in this industry, if it's not recreational. But there's also the very important conservation side of it. We can overfish, we can fish out a season, and there's so many different threats. How do you work? I would imagine this was a difficult relationship to build, but usually in conversation I find out that our fishermen are in fact our first conservationists out at sea. Talk to us about the relationship.
Well, the conservation part of it is very healthy for the industry.
Yeah.
Some fishermen don't welcome, too much parks or no take zone or whatever. But it's good for the industry because the spin-off of those conservation will benefit fishermen.
Yeah.
Thing is that the worst case scenario here is that I put a reserve here, I put one here, I put one there in Glover's Reef, I put one there in Turnip Island, I put so many on the main reef. But I haven't got enforcement to take care of it. So you find that maybe one or two of these conservation areas are productive and the balance are just, and those are the things that we look at. On the other hand, we try to educate our fishermen that, hey, we need to fish the proper way. That's why we are so concerned about the private sector, because we have land in sight all over the place. And it encourages the black market, because then there's not a proper monitoring. There's not there are not people there checking the size.
In other words, if I bring in something that's illegal or not out of season or undersized to co-op, I wouldn't even bother. But if I take it to a seaside purchaser, nobody's there to monitor. I see that very clearly. And from the conservation
the conservation perspective, it's easier for us to work through the cooperatives as opposed to going to each of these landing sites and working with these different groups. If you have a cooperative, basically, the cooperative is responsible for abiding by the regulations that the Fisheries Department has in place in terms of size limits, seasons, and so on. So we encourage fishers to become a part of our cooperatives, right? And through this, then we also work with the cooperatives because we identify the challenges that they're facing, especially when it comes to the private sector and the competition. So we engage the cooperatives and we look at different programs that will help them to become more competitive, whether it's looking at becoming more energy efficient, reducing your overhead costs, also looking at identifying other markets and other products, such as the use of the live lobster, which provides their members a higher price. Introducing a traceability system which basically documents from that product that is coming into their cooperative and how it's basically moving along that cooperative into export, and basically streamlining that system. So those are some of the things that we're looking at, as well as getting some of them fair trade certified, which again will looking at identifying potential markets that bring in better prices. So for us, yes, conservation is an integral part of the work that we do, but we identify that fishing, it is a livelihood, and all of these different measures that we're trying to put in place affect the income and the livelihood of fishers. So as a result of that, you need to ensure that there are benefits that you're providing. If you want to put these measures in place, obviously you need to provide benefits for the fishers.
Definitely.
Ralna, how unique is Belize's experience in how we work with our fishing industry? Because I know you have technology that you integrate that the fishermen use. You work with the cooperatives, they're very much on board. We've spoken to so many fishermen who say, listen, I know that it's not the same way it used to be in the past in terms of accessibility to produce. Are we ahead of the game in terms of how our fisherfolk are doing?
I'd have to say a lot of countries do come to Belize to look at what we have in place.
Oh, wow.
Our marine protected areas system that is in place, as well as the Fisheries Department, and the close collaboration I have to say that they have with the NGOs, and and that the NGOs have with the fishing community. So it is a model that people look at, these other countries, and they try to see how they can adapt some of these measures into their current fisheries system.
Do we see at this particular point? For many years, we've been hearing about the decline of our products. We've been hearing this. Is there a rise in Fisherfolk, a decline, and what's going on in that area?
In that area, you will find that every year it goes down a bit.
Wow.
Because there are increase of vessels on the sea. We have dredging. We have fishermen are increasing every year, and to one specific cooperative, that product that came in last year will share among other people. So we won't be seeing that same trend of production on a yearly basis because of these infringements that are happening.
Do we monitor what our fisherfolk are using to catch fish? Because you know, just looking at social media and hearing the news, the rise of gill nets from non-Belizeans are actually going on down south. Are we monitoring what these guys are using to bring in their catch?
Well, that's a question for Fisheries Department. I think they do monitor it because the nets are very devastating, especially if you use it in large quantities or a large net. We know, and everyone of this country knows, that fishermen need to have something to feed their family with. So if you go and monitor, for example, the nets, I can't go on the coastline and take away all the nets from these people because it will break their livelihoods. So what I do, I take a long net, for example, if it's 100 or 200 yards, and give them a 50 yards to take care of their family, smaller. And I think these are the programs we need to get into to monitor that situation. Also, on the other hand, we are divers. So what we do there, we do a lot of diving. So we try to have an 8-month season and try to comply with, work hand in hand with Fisheries Department so that our fishers could do the correct thing. And we also have programs that we go in different communities, Copperbank, Sartaneja, and those areas to talk to the fishermen and show them the importance of taking care of the industry.
Now, June will be celebrated as Fisherfolk Month. It gives us a time to highlight the hard work that is entailed, the additional human resources that every individual who goes out to catch fish also utilizes. What are the particular objectives for your end in being able to have a month where we talk about the contributions of Fisherfolk?
Well, this month activity, the entire month is being celebrated under the theme working towards zero hunger with sustainable small-scale fisheries. As you know, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals focuses a lot on poverty eradication, as well as working towards zero hunger, and also it looks at your low-income countries and looking at how sustainable fisheries management can work towards addressing some of these issues. So this year, that is what the team revolves around. There was a recent meeting, the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism Ministerial Council had a meeting in May earlier this month, and at that meeting they agreed to integrate what is called a voluntary guidelines for securing small-scale fisheries in the context of poverty eradication and food security. So basically that is just an internationally agreed instrument which for the first time looks at small-scale fisheries and the social and economic aspects of small-scale fisheries.
What does that mean though, small-scale fishing?
So small-scale fisheries basically are fisheries that are very localized in your communities and whereby the products obviously go a lot in terms of human consumption. Not a lot of it is used, for example, for fish meal and so on. So that is what your small-scale fisheries looks at. So for Belize, we classify our fisheries sector as a small-scale fisheries sector, right? So this instrument is very important because for the first time it brings that human rights-based approach to fisheries governance and fisheries management. And some of the guiding principles of it looks at gender equality and equity. But when they're speaking about gender, they're speaking specifically about women and men. And it looks at also about the democratic process involved in the fisheries governance. So ensuring that women are integrated in the decision-making process, as well as it also looks at the cultural dynamics of the fisheries sector, ensuring that some of these cultural practices continue and these are maintained and they're not infringed by your private sector and by international investments and so on. So this was something that the member countries of CARICOM identified as very important, and they're looking at how to integrate that into our fisheries sector. So that is what the theme for this month month revolves around. And there are several activities that we have planned for the month. We have our opening ceremony the 1st of June, which is followed by an open day. And I think the open day is very instrumental because it provides an avenue for different members of the sector that we would see as non-traditional being a part of it and looking at how they contribute towards our fisheries sector. So we have people from the Coast Guard, you know, the Fisheries Department, obviously, Women's Department, as well as the Cooperative departments and so on. So looking at how they contribute towards this sector that we might not necessarily, you know, have identified as being members of it. So we have the open day. Then on the 12th of June, we have our 2nd annual Women in Fisheries Forum. Right? So that is a forum whereby we involve the women involved in the sector. Last year, we developed a gender action plan, and we want to further that this year as well, and looking at how we can mainstream some of these things into our fisheries sector in aspects of communications, decision making, and so on. Right? And then after that, we have the blessing of the boats, which is the 13th of June, which is right before the opening of lobster season. Right? So
before you lose all of them.
Right? So we have the blessing of the boat, and this is something that was way back. Mr. Dawson can remember that that they used to have.
It's a mass blessing? Like,
yes, right. So it's at the 2 major cooperatives that they'll do the blessing of the boat, right? And it's for us to ask for God's protection as they go out into, you know, into the sea. You know, fishing is recognized by the International Labour Organization as one of the most dangerous jobs, right, in the world. So it's for us to, you know, for us to take time and look back on the blessings that we've received over the years, and for fishers in particular, the good catch that they have, and, you know, for them to ask for that as well as they go out.
Definitely. You
let me just get 2 things in here. One, what's the level of representation of women at the cooperative?
Well, in both societies, both Ralna and national, we don't have discrimination. We welcome any female member or whatever, you know. And as a matter of fact, we have our name there as National Fishermen. We want to change it as to put like National Fishers. Or something like that, so not to discriminate, you know. And we welcome the female because we have a lot of female working at the plant. We have a lot of female people out at Geese that would like to, you know.
Let's face the fact that you know, when it comes to female going out there as well, they are more than capable, much more patient in terms of getting there, because they know what it is like to eventually trying to bring that income, and especially feeding their family. One of the things that I've got to touch on though is, of course, the open day. You know, it's something that I think is a very wonderful idea. And I'm saying this from the standpoint that, especially when it comes to open day, we have young people going out there to eventually view what goes on. And I think this is one of the things that, especially for our livelihood on a daily basis, that is missing. When you take these people out there to see how it works, they better understand, they follow the rules, and they carry that out. They carry it out there. Who is expected to visit this open day?
So the open day is invited to the general public. We're targeting schools primarily to come and visit. It's at the Memorial Park, before I forget, and it starts at 11 o'clock. The opening ceremony is at 10, but people are invited as well to come to the opening ceremony. And we'll have the presence of the Honorable Dr. Omar Figueroa at the open day. So, you know, you can come on out. So we're targeting those persons. And before I forget, the 29th of June is the actual Caribbean Fisherfolk Day. At that day, we'll be recognizing the Fisher of the Year award of the Fisher of the Year. So at this time, we're accepting nominations. You can go to the Fisheries Department office or the Office of the Wildlife Conservation Society on Coney Drive to receive one of the nomination forms.
What's the criteria?
So the criteria, you have to be a licensed fisher, right? We ask that we want to know whether or not they're a member of a fishing cooperative or a fisher association, and we ask people to explain to us, why do you think this person is the Fisher of the Year? What qualities have they demonstrated that would make us want to recognize them as the Fisher of the Year? So those are some of the, you know, some of the questions that we have in there for persons nominating them.
And in the past, what have been some of the unique qualities that have helped you to select the Fisher of the Year?
Okay, so last year we have Mr. Leovihildo Tomai, and I think one of the outstanding things for him is that he works so closely with his fishers, and he also worked closely with the NGOs and the Fisheries Department to bring about this management regime called Manage Access, right? So I think people have heard a lot about that. So he was instrumental in the implementation of that program in Belize. So that was one of the big qualifying factors for him. And I think the close relationship that he has with his fishers and representing them in so much, forums and committees bringing about their issues.
Let's get back to the scholarship aspect of the whole situation, and I think it's a very great gesture, especially to have people be a part of the Coop. How many people right now are on scholarship there, if you could remember that, and what do people have to do, or do they have to do, to get their family enrolled or their children enrolled?
Okay, the first part of it, I don't quite remember, but it's a substantial amount of people that had benefited from the scholarship.
Well, so far there are people on there.
Yes. It started from 4th form to 6th form.
Wow.
So they are grateful for that. And all you have to do is to be a loyal fisherman that brings your product to national fishermen. There are also criteria on it. If you don't have certain amount of pounds, like 200 pounds of lobster tail, they won't allow you, because they were, it's something that has set recently, because due to the competition, people sell their product all over the place, and
then bring a little bit in.
Bring a little bit into it.
Exactly.
So we are looking for loyal members and people,
Excellent.
that are working with us.
When's the deadline for the nominations of Fisher of the Year?
The deadline is the 15th of June, right?
Okay.
And we have advertisements out now.
Yes.
Right, so please
Fisher,
submit.
which means fisherwoman, fisherman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Involved in the fishing industry.
The first year was a woman, actually, Mrs. Anna Ramirez from Punta Gorda.
Yes,
Talk.
I remember
exactly
that.
And the thing is, the unique thing, her entire family is involved in it.
Yeah.
Right? Her sister was nominated last year, I believe. Right? So it's a very unique thing to look at their family and how their parents ensure that the daughters are also able to fish well, dive well as well. So
Excellent.
If I may say something here pertaining to that, I would like to thank WCS to revive this program, for reviving this program, because it started in San Pedro some 60 years ago.
Wow.
With Dia de San Pedro, that started, that Fisherman Day. And every opening of lobster season, we have this type of activities.
But and that's where the blessing of the boat came from?
The blessing of the boats, everything. Yes. And that went dormant due to the falling of the society out there. The Cooperative went down.
Oh, wow.
And when I heard about it, it was, something very interesting. It's something, that brings back those wonderful memories.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for coming in. Of course, June officially kickstart Fisherfolk Month. You are looking for nominations for Fisher of the Year. I believe you said it's an application form or nomination form. They're accessible at WCS office and Fisheries Department.
Yes. All right.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you as well for having us.
And best of luck as the lobster season approaches, especially.
Yes. We have no natural disasters, because it's devastating for us.
Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But thank you so much once again. We are going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we will be talking about an upcoming art exhibition. So stay tuned.